First up, we got Joel Kim Booster. Comedian and actor Joel Kim Booster shared his thoughts on Dave Chappelle's homophobic and racist joke about Asians in his Netflix special Sticks and Stones. In an interview with All of It, the Korean American responded to the joke, which includes Chappelle doing a racist impression of a Chinese person, in an effort to make a jab at trans people. Chappelle joked that if trans people were born in the wrong body, he could apply that same logic to race, then making a point to include that his wife is Asian. When asked about the joke, Booster said, quote, "It's kind of sad. I think Chappelle used to have really interesting and precedent things to say about power structures and things like that, and I just don't think he's interested in dismantling that anymore. At least not from an interesting place, or at least not from beyond his own point of view, which in his right as a comic I guess, but I felt a little bit, I don't know, old when I watched it." Next up, Michael Jackson's accusers. During his hit Netflix comedy special Sticks and Stones, Dave Chappelle took aim at Michael Jackson accusers Wade Robson and James Safechuck. The pair had just come forward in a documentary revealing that while they were friends with Jackson as kids, they were sexually abused. In Sticks and Stones, Chappelle flat out says he doesn't believe the pair. He then shared a dark joke, saying that the men should almost be proud that they had that experience with Michael Jackson because of his fame and stature. Chappelle then responded to claims that they went on free trips with Jackson to Hawaii, with Chappelle adding, quote, "I know it's harsh, but somebody's gotta teach these kids there's no such thing as a free trip to Hawaii." In statements to TMZ, both Robson and Safechuck responded to Chappelle's routine. Safechuck said, quote, "I'm heartbroken for all those children who look to see how they will be received when they finally find the courage to speak out about their abuse. I just want to reach out to other survivors and let them know that we can't let this type of behavior silence us. Together we are strong." Robson's lawyer added that, quote, "It's unfortunate that Chappelle has chosen to use his platform to shame victims and spread his ignorance about the way it's perpetrated upon children." Next up, Eve 6. Following Chappelle's controversial comments about the trans community in his latest special, The Closer, rock band Eve 6 decided to share their thoughts on Twitter. During the special, Chappelle labeled himself a TERF and said that gender is a fact, even adding every person in the world had to pass through a woman's legs to be on Earth, then adding that genitalia the trans women have is like Beyond Meat or the Impossible Burger. The band later tweeted about the comments, quote, "Dave Chappelle says Twitter isn't a real place, and he's right. The real places are the alleys and underpasses where trans people on the margins are murdered because of societal prejudice that he is lazily defending under the pretense of intellectual bravery." However, many criticized this tweet, saying the band missed the full picture about what was said in the special. Next up, Key and Peele. Dave Chappelle is beloved by those in the comedy world other than Key and Peele. This is because Chappelle threw some shade at the pair during an interview with Gayle King for CBS. During that interview, Chappelle admitted that it hurt him to see the pair using the types of comedy that he fought hard to establish during Chappelle's show without any credit. He said, quote, "I fought very hard when I watched Key and Peele, and I see they're doing a format that I created, and at the end of the show it says created by Key and Peele. That hurts my feelings." The pair never directly responded to Chappelle's accusations, but Jordan Peele indirectly responded on Twitter. After a few fans were speaking amongst themselves that Key and Peele stole Dave's show, Peele responded in a tweet of his own, responding, quote, "Everything's gonna be alright fellas," along with a photo of him and Chappelle speaking. Next up, the organization Glaad. After Chappelle premiered his latest comedy special, backlash flooded in about his jokes against the LGBT+ community. The Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation organization even tweeted condemning Chappelle. They wrote, quote, "Dave Chappelle's brand has become synonymous with ridiculing trans people and other marginalized communities. Negative reviews and viewers loudly condemning his latest special is a message to the industry that audiences don't support platforming anti-LGBTQ diatribes. We agree." And this is just one of many organizations that have spoken out against Chappelle and his jokes that target the community. Next up, Jacqueline Moore. Like I said above, Chappelle's special The Closer has generated tons of backlash from the LGBT+ community, specifically trans people. Jacqueline Moore is one of those people. She's a trans writer for shows like Dear White People and the upcoming Peacock reboot of Queer as Folk. But she said on Twitter following the special that she is done with Netflix for supporting Chappelle's jokes. Moore tweeted, quote, "I love so many of the people that I've worked with at Netflix. Brilliant people and executives who've been collaborative and fought for important art. But I've been thrown against walls because I'm not a real woman, and I've had beer bottles thrown at me, so Netflix, I'm done." Adding in another tweet, quote, "I will not work with them as long as they continue to put out and profit from blatantly and dangerously transphobic content." After the tweets, it was reported that Jacqueline Moore along with 2 other Netflix staff were suspended for tweeting about the show, but it was revealed after that they were actually suspended for trying to crash a meeting that was happening between the bigwigs at the company. It seems that Chappelle is not fazed by the backlash, and even said following the backlash at another stand-up show, quote, "If this is what being cancelled is like, I love it," he said as the crowd gave him a standing ovation. And finally, at number 1, Dave Chappelle himself. The person who does the most to warn us about Dave Chappelle is himself, as he continues to make jokes that he knows will get him cancelled, although he doesn't really seem to care. After facing tons of backlash for The Closer, he told a Los Angeles crowd, quote, "If this is what being cancelled is like, I love it." He continued by trashing liberal-leaning organizations, saying, quote, "F Twitter, F NBC News, ABC News, all of these stupid networks. I'm not talking to them, I'm talking to you. This is real life." In many of his specials, Dave addresses the LGBT community and tries to respond to the claims that they've made about him from his controversial jokes. He even jokingly called himself a, quote, "transphobic comedian" in his latest special, leaning into the names that the media has given him. At this time, it seems that Dave might know he's pushed the limits of his comedy too far, as he announced he is going to be taking a break from comedy following the release of his special. He even ended off his last show saying he will no longer be making jokes about the LGBT community, saying, quote, "I am not telling another joke about you until we are both sure we are laughing together. I'm telling you, I'm done. I'm done talking. All I ask from your community with all humility, will you please stop punching down on my people?" Which was a controversial reference insinuating that LGBTQ+ community is punching down on the black community. Starting off this list, we got Beyonce. After Beyonce released the hit album Lemonade, Amy thought it would be funny if she made a video of her and some of her snatched cast members lip-syncing along to it. The video featured Goldie Hawn, Wanda Sykes, and Joan Cusack. Even though the video was released on Tidal, seemingly approved by Beyonce and Jay-Z, it got tons of backlash from fans. Most of the claims centered around the fact that regardless of approval or not, this was not Schumer's work to parody. Some also felt it was particularly tone deaf for them to parody a song about black empowerment. Amy addressed the backlash in an article, admiring how the album brought women together. But Amy didn't address the key issues that fans had, making it clear that Amy didn't understand why it was out of place. Next up, Tammy Pescatelli. Since Amy Schumer has become an A-list comedian, she's been accused of joke stealing on many occasions. Most of the drama took place on Twitter, where Kathleen Madigan, Wendy Liebman, and Tammy Pescatelli all alleged that Amy stole jokes from them. Pescatelli was the most vocal, tweeting, quote, "What's always been amazing to me is that she purports to be a feminist, yet only steals from other female comedians. If we all call her on it, we are jealous or career shamed. Be successful. We want you to do well, just do it with your own material. By the way, she blocked me." One of the jokes was from Kathleen Madigan, where she said Oprah was so rich she could hire someone to slap food out of her hand as a weight loss tool. The joke that Amy stole from Pescatelli was talking about how women will dress their boyfriends so horribly that nobody else will want to date them. Amy used this joke in her movie Trainwreck. Next up, Equinox staff. Amy Schumer can be pretty full of herself. She made that clear when she pulled the "Do you know who I am" card at a New York City gym. Basically, she tried to walk into the Equinox without presenting her membership card, which is standard policy. One employee said, quote, "She felt entitled to just walk in. She didn't want to show her key fob and wanted to be able to go in and not be questioned." Apparently, when the employee asked for her ID, Amy replied that she's famous. The source added, quote, "It was clear that Amy wanted to go in under the radar and not even stop to have the desk clerk look up her account on a computer." Apparently, Amy was so peeved about the entire experience that she left the gym altogether. Next up, Jackson Murphy. Jackson Murphy, a 17-year-old film critic who took a photo with Amy at the Critics' Choice Awards, tweeted a raunchy caption along with the photo of him and Schumer, and it totally backfired. Schumer is known for her self-deprecating humor, specifically relating to sleeping around. So the critic posted a photo of the two of them with the caption, quote, "Spent the night with Amy Schumer, certainly not the first guy to write that." Even though it was a light-hearted jab, Schumer tweeted back clearly disappointed. She wrote, quote, "I get it, cause I'm a whole glad I took a photo with you. Hi to your dad." Jackson quickly apologized once he realized her feelings were hurt, claiming he thought she would like the joke. Schumer later tweeted back, quote, "That's really okay, honey. I just remember thinking you and your dad were sweet, and it was just a bummer to read that." Some people felt that Amy had the appropriate reaction, but others felt she was way too harsh on the teen for a simple joke that she makes oftentimes about herself. Next up, Steve-O. While Schumer and Steve-O were on the panel for Comedy Central's roast of Charlie Sheen in 2012, she told a joke that many felt crossed the line. At the time, Steve-O's good friend and collaborator Ryan Dunn had just passed away in a drunk driving accident. Amy's joke was, quote, "I truly am, no joke, sorry for the loss of your friend Ryan Dunn. I know you must have been thinking it could have been me, and I know we were all thinking, why wasn't it? The camera then panned to Steve-O's face, and he was not laughing. Fans immediately came to his defense after the special, trashing Schumer, but Steve-O actually came to her defense and said it was a good joke. While on the Big J show at KRSQ Hot 101.9, Steve-O said that Schumer asked him for help to calm his fans. Steve-O agreed, saying, quote, "Hey everybody, it was a roast, you know, where people say mean things to each other on purpose. That silly little was just doing her job. To this day, she will not apologize for the joke." Next up, Ashley Graham. Like I said before, Amy Schumer is very self-deprecating, and she often talks about how her body is not model-esque. But it seems that she doesn't like when other people put that label onto her. When Glamour magazine included Amy Schumer in the 2016 Chic at Any Size issue, alongside plus-size stars like Melissa McCarthy, Adele and Ashley Graham, Schumer was offended by her inclusion. She shared her thoughts on Instagram, writing, quote, "I think there's nothing wrong with being plus-size, beautiful, healthy women. Plus-size is considered size 16 in America. I go between a size 6 and 8. Glamour Mag put me in their plus size only issue without asking me or letting me know, and it doesn't feel right to me. Young girls seeing my body type thinking that is plus size." Although many understood Schumer's point, some were confused, as she constantly speaks about not being super skinny. She even said at the Glamour Women of the Year Awards, quote, "I'm like 160 pounds and can catch a D whenever I want." Ashley Graham didn't like the sentiment and clapped back in Cosmopolitan, saying, quote, "Amy talks about being a big girl in the industry. You thrive on being a big girl, but when you're grouped in with us, you're not happy about it. That to me felt like a double standard." And lastly, Amy Schumer herself. One fan exposed that Amy is rude to her fans, and even caught the whole thing on video. While Amy was touring in Greenville, South Carolina, she posted a photo of a fan and claimed that he was harassing her to get a photo. The caption said in part, quote, "This guy in front of his family just ran up next to me, scared the out of me, put a camera in my face. I asked him to stop and he said, 'No, it's America and we paid for you.'" Apparently she asked him to stop multiple times, but he did not. She finished off saying that she was no longer going to take any photos with fans because of this guy in Greenville. But the fan, named Leslie Brewer, responded with his own Instagram post. He posted a video of his interaction with Schumer, and it was very different from what Schumer described. And in the video, Amy is calmly asking him to delete a photo of her that she didn't like. In response to this video, a source shared, quote, "She's always hated taking photos with fans, even before she had a TV show or a movie. She couldn't be bothered then and she can't be bothered now." After this all exploded, she said she will still take pictures with fans only if she feels like it. First up, Dan Crenshaw. Part of being a comedian is knowing what is crossing the line and what isn't. Pete got some major backlash on SNL after he made fun of politician Dan Crenshaw for wearing an eye patch. Even worse, Crenshaw got the eye patch while fighting in the army overseas. According to ABC News, former Navy SEAL Dan Crenshaw, quote, "lost his right eye when an IED exploded during a tour of Afghanistan in 2012. Many comedians would make a point not to make fun of a person with a disability, but Pete did not feel this way and trashed him on SNL. Davidson said during a 2018 episode of the show, quote, "You may be surprised to hear he's a congressional candidate from Texas and not a hitman in a porno movie." He then added, quote, "I'm sorry, I know he lost his eye in a war or whatever." Even fellow SNL cast member Kenan Thompson felt the line was crossed and said on the Today Show, quote, "I personally would never necessarily go there, but it's tough when you're fishing for jokes." Davidson and Crenshaw were able to make amends, and Crenshaw was even featured on an episode of SNL the week after the scandal, where he said some jokes at Pete's expense. Greg Yuna. We all know that Ariana Grande and Pete Davidson went through a hot and heavy romance that even led to an engagement at one point, but it did not last, and after only 5 months of being together, Pete and Ariana split. There was a lot of controversy with the relationship, and from the timeline it seemed like there might have been some cheating when it came to the relationship. A jeweler named Greg Yuna even came forward exposing that Pete wanted a ring in May of 2018. Only a week before Pete and Ariana were official, Pete was in a 4-year relationship with Cassie David, and there's a potential that Pete bought a ring for Cassie but ended up giving it to Ariana. After news of Pete and Ariana's engagement was made public, celebrity jeweler Greg Yuna revealed that Davidson reached out to him about a $93,000 engagement ring back in May of 2018. He said, quote, "Pete called me at the end of May and said, 'Look, I'm getting a ring. This is what I want,' and I told him that I had the right ring for him. He didn't tell me who it was for, but told me to keep it a secret. He didn't tell me anything about it." The reason this is strange is because Cassie and Pete announced their split on May 16th of 2018, so it's hard to tell if the ring was purchased for Kazi, or if he bought Ariana the ring before things were finished between him and Kazi. Next up, Kazi David. Kazi was in a long-term relationship with Pete for 4 years before they split, and he publicly moved on to Ariana. At the time, she played it off, acting cool about his public relationship, but in a 2020 interview, she recalled just how difficult it was for her. While speaking with the LA Times, she shared more about their relationship and said that she constantly had to convince him that she loved him. She also revealed that she was the one that ended the relationship because it was becoming too toxic, but apparently a few days after the split, she called him and wanted him back, to which he declined. At that point, he was already with Ariana. Kazi says she was devastated and quote, shook uncontrollably in her father's arms during a flight to her sister's college graduation. She added that she couldn't stop thinking about Davidson and Grande immediately falling in love, accompanied by an audio of her baby voice whispering sweet nothings in his ear, dubbed over his past declarations of love and trust to me. Next up, Kanye West. Pete Davidson and Kim Kardashian have been spending a lot of time together recently, and many think the pair are officially dating. Kim used to be married to Kanye West, who was also friendly with Pete at one point in time, so fans think that Pete is breaking bro code by being with Kim. Kanye apparently also hates that Kim is getting handsy with Pete while out in public. In one resurfaced SNL clip, Pete poked fun at Kanye on a Weekend Update skit years before his date with Kim. Pete joked that Kanye was off his meds and needed to start taking them again. Pete also told Kanye that being mentally ill is not an excuse to be a jackass. Pete also put on a MAGA hat that read quote, "Make Kanye 2006 again." Then a photo resurfaced of Kanye and Pete out to dinner together at Nobu in 2019. The pair were joined by Kim, Kid Cudi, and Timothée Chalamet. Kim shared 3 photos of the unlikely group smiling while seated around a dinner table at the time, writing quote, "Happy birthday Kid Cudi," which confirmed that Kanye and Pete were friendly. A source told Hollywood Life that Kanye has commented on Kim and Pete's new romance. The source said quote, "Kanye was really put off by Kim holding hands with Pete and he did not like it at all. He asked Kim to quote, please refrain from showing public displays of affection with anyone until their divorce is finalized." The source even added that Kanye has contacted Kris Jenner for info on the new relationship, but she won't give a straight answer. Next up, Ariana Grande. Following the breaking off of their engagement, Ariana is probably the person with the most to say about Pete. They had a 5-month relationship in 2018 that had a bitter end, and their rocky romance gave Ariana the inspiration for her hit album, Thank You Next. Ariana opened up more about their relationship in a 2019 interview with Vogue. Apparently, her friends convinced her to spend the summer in New York after her breakup with Mac Miller. That's where she met Pete. Ari said that she loved Pete, but the relationship was quote, frivolous and insane, and admitted that she quote, didn't know him, despite agreeing to marry him, even calling the relationship quote, an amazing distraction, adding, it was frivolous and fun and insane and highly unrealistic, and I loved him and I didn't know him. These comments rubbed Pete the wrong way, and he clapped back in his Netflix comedy special called Pete Davidson, A Live from New York. He got some flack for talking about their relationship, and he responded quote, where did she say this stuff? To her friends in the confidence of her own home? No, she said it on the cover of Vogue magazine. Can you imagine if I did that? My career would be over tomorrow if I spray painted myself brown and hopped on the cover of Vogue magazine and just started shitting on my ex. And lastly, Pete Davidson himself. During his relationship with Ariana, the public uncovered some controversial jokes made by Davidson. Some were even at Ariana's expense. Back when they were madly in love, Pete joked about switching Ari's birth control pills with Tic Tacs so that he would be tied to her forever. The joke was told while Pete was talking about how Ariana was the breadwinner in their relationship. He said quote, I live at her place, she pays like 60 grand for rent, and all I have to do is stock the fridge. Then Davidson spoke about how the man doesn't always need to be the breadwinner in a relationship, adding quote, last night I switched her birth control with Tic Tacs. I believe in us and all, I just want to make sure that she can't go anywhere. Then it was uncovered that after the tragedy at Ariana's Manchester concert that left 23 of her fans dead, Pete made a tone-deaf joke about it. According to The Mirror, in fall of 2017, Pete joked that Ariana must have realized how famous she was after the attack because quote, Britney Spears didn't have a tragedy at her concert. Yikes. Ariana came to his defense and told fans that he uses comedy to make people feel better, but her fans still didn't accept the excuse. This is one of many inappropriate jokes that Pete has made over the years. He was also known for oversharing in his relationship to Ariana, and he would talk about their intimate life in public, which Ariana did not like.